What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into Bruce Springsteen's material. Going to start doing some archival and live releases. I'm going to kick off this little series with 2010's The Promise, a 2-disc set that came out in 2010, featuring material that was recorded in 1977 and 78 during the Darkness sessions. That was, for the most part, never released, though a number of the songs on here were reworked either lyrically or musically and were released on Darkness or somehow made it to other albums, or maybe not. Maybe they're all just on Darkness. Not going to play any music from this album. Just going to rant and rave about it and review it and then ultimately rank it. And just try to encourage people who haven't heard it to check it out because it is an absolutely fantastic release. 2 discs. Like I said, it's material that he recorded during the Darkness sessions, but because he was in some sort of legal battle, he was not able to release it. So eventually he just kept recording material and recording material. Eventually he kind of went a darker direction than a lot of the material that's on here and ended up with Darkness on the Edge of Town. And then after Darkness, he released The River, which kind of revisited a lot of the sort of early rock tropes, the early sort of soul vibe, a lot of the musical energy that these songs sort of like dedicate themselves to. After he would do Darkness, he would kind of go back and revisit that for a little bit of The River. But if you've watched my video on his studio albums, I'm not the biggest fan of The River. A lot of things about that album just bother me in minor little ways. I think the sequencing is off. I do like some of the slower, more intense songs on there. I don't think the sort of early rock vibe is as successful as the slower stuff. To me, it's a double album that has filler that I don't like. So I've always been a little, even though I've tried at least once a year over the past 40 years to try to get into The River, I never have. This is fantastic. This has some early soul songs, some early rock and roll songs, songs that evoke like a Roy Orbison vibe, songs that evoke like a Supremes vibe. A lot of this reminds me of what Elvis Costello did with Get Happy, where he just revisited this like 60s sound and just made this almost like celebration of that music. And a lot of the stuff on here has that energy and is that celebration in a way that's just some of Bruce Springsteen's best stuff. There are a couple songs on here that I think would have worked on Darkness on the Edge of Town. Either way, I think if this had been released, even as is at some point in the 70s, but definitely if this material had been sort of looked at and compiled and edited down into a single release, it's up there with all the rest of the 70s stuff. Yeah, this stuff's been, lying in a vault for decades and didn't see the light of day until 2010, but there's an outright amazing S-tier Springsteen album in this material. And even with the 2 discs, it's about 45 minutes a disc, so it's a full double album. Even the filler on here is just, none of it is bad. Like, it's just an absolutely just fantastic, fun release. 2 discs. I do think disc 2 is the stronger of the two. And interestingly enough, a lot of the stuff I like on Darkness and The River are kind of the slower, more intense Springsteen songs. Here, it's the opposite. It's the really upbeat, peppy, horn-filled, let's dance type stuff that I think he succeeds at. But there's a little of both. It opens up with an alternative version of Racing in the Street, which just works really well as an opening for this album because it's definitely not as, I think, an intense a listen or as an effective a listen as what he would end up with, but it's still really, really good. It maybe is a little less nuanced, maybe a little more resigned to his fate, but at the same time defiant. It's got some weird energy going on it, but it really works as an opener, and it's nice to just sort of hear how Bruce would kind of tweak his songs, with different recordings before he ended up with what he ended up with. That follows with Gotta Get That Feeling, which very much sounds like it could have been like a 60s girl group throwback type song. Would have fit perfectly on The River. Sax solo comes in that works pretty well. Outside Looking In, straight up Buddy Holly song. Another one that would have fit really well on The River. It's just got that Buddy Holly groove and bounce really well. Someday We'll Be Together, a little bit of a ballad, very much almost like a song, Hands in the Air. type ballad. Pretty nice. One Way Street. This one vocally reminds me of Get Happy, Elvis Costello. I think a couple songs when he's doing this sort of soul retro vibe and he goes into that sort of huskier, lower register. It reminds me of some of the tracks on Get Happy. But yeah, One Way Street, nice, really subtle horns, really good vibe, kind of a crooner song. We get over his version of Because the Night. We also get his version of Fire, the Pointer Sisters cover on disc 2. I think both, mainly because Fire and Because the Night, as done by Patti Smith and Pointer Sisters, are so absolutely perfectly executed. And I grew up on those in the 70s that these ultimately don't compare, but they are in no way bad in any way, shape, or form. The piano's not quite there yet on Because the Night. These are Smith's lyrics, I believe, in this version. It's really great to have a studio version of this. This would have been awesome to hear on an album back in the 70s. Wrong Side of the Street, really nice, great rock vibe, super catchy melody follows. Another one, just an excellent song, just a pure rock from the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s sound. The Brokenhearted, very Orbison type crooner ballad. Rendezvous, kind of bigger, jangly pop rock. I believe this was on Tracks, another archival release of Springsteen tracks that had not been released throughout the decades. And then disc 1 closes out with Candy's Boy, which opens up with the same lyrics as Candy's Room, but has a completely, like we're up in Candy's Room, completely different vibe. Some really nice organ work. Kind of reminds me, like it flirts with almost like a carnival, Atlantic City boardwalk carnival type musical vibe, but at the same time it has this 50s nostalgia about it. Really excellent track. That's disc 1, which is really strong. But disc 2, if you ask me, just kind of blows it out of the water, and I really like disc 1. Disc 2 opens up with Save My Love, upbeat, radio friendly. I believe there were overdubs on a lot of these tracks, and I think this is one of the ones that was overdubbed, and I believe Clarence Clemens' like last saxophone recording was an overdub for Save My Love, so we get that. Opens up side 2 in a very lighthearted, free-spirited, poppy sort of way. And though there are some dark moments on side 2, this is a very optimistic, feel-good, fun side of music. Ain't Good Enough for You might just be one of the most enjoyable songs the Boss has ever written. Could be a Diana Ross and the Supreme song. It's just oozes soul, great backing vocals. There's this sort of breakdown section in the middle where everybody but the drums drop out and Bruce Springsteen's kind of just singing. Awesome vibe. It is just one of the most fun songs I think I've ever heard him do. That's followed by his version of Fire, a little bit faster, driving in your car, not quite the slow burner that the Pointer Sisters version is. Why this was not on an album, had he not been in his legal battle, I'm sure his discography there's probably something dropped after Born to Run that's not Darkness, and it probably has a different vibe than what we get on Darkness. And Fire, I think, would have been a centerpiece of it. We get a great saxophone solo. We get a guitar solo. Just a fun listen. Spanish Eyes has this really nice rolling energy, piano vibe. The opening lyrics are the same opening lyrics as I'm on Fire. Hey, little baby, is your daddy home? But a completely different vibe. Like, I don't think I realized they were the same lyrics until I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Those are the same lyrics as I'm on Fire, only because it musically sounds nothing like it. So we see that Bruce liked those lyrics, held on to them, and when like this never got released, he's like, okay, I'm going to put them in this different song. A song called It's a Shame, which sort of is almost a heavier, rockier version of like Hungry Heart and Prove It All Night. It's like somewhere in between there. It's got some great horns. It's almost like Hungry Heart, but with like darkness attitude. Awesome organ action in there. Another just outright fantastic earworm of a song. Come On, Let's Go Come on, let's go tonight. This one has a Promised Land vibe, also like Factory. I think one of the lines in here would eventually be recycled for Factory. This is a very of this era boss song that would have fit on probably Darkness or The River. Talk to Me, super great 60s soul vibe, fun, infectious. Driver, that there's a melody that kind of has that dun 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 dun, and where I go I'll follow, that kind of vibe, but dun dun, like that early 60s girls group beat. The Little Thing My Baby Does, this would have fit perfectly on The River. Bruce is sort of experimenting with his falsetto a little bit on here. It's got this sort of big anthemic ballady vibe, this really awesome bridge that's just like has so many hooks in it. It's just amazing. Early rock soul vibe on this one. Breakaway, kind of a Darkness song. This is one of those that I think would have fit on Darkness. A little more brooding. Got a Roy Orbison sort of crooner vibe. We got some horns that come in here. We got almost like a soundtrack ending to it where things are just kind of getting bigger as Bruce weaves this story. Yeah, it would have fit really well on Darkness. And then we get the title track for this album, The Promise, which justifies having an album called The Promise between Born to Run and Darkness. Would have fit perfectly as a closing song on that album. Nice piano intro. A lot of little instruments coming in to add atmosphere, even more so it seems than other Springsteen songs of this era. This seems like maybe there was some 2010 production that brought sort of the vibe. It's got a big ballad Darkness vibe, like I'm saying something important about people's lives. Great storytelling. We get some Thunder Road conceptual continuity because the words Thunder Road keep popping up in the chorus, which would make sense on a follow-up album to Born to Run. It slowly builds but doesn't really get too crazy. There's a really nice long musical fade out that would have ended an album perfectly. Just an absolutely fantastic song. And then the actual album closes out. There's a hidden track with a song called City of the Night, which is slow, atmospheric, kind of a very confident stroll musically, though lyrically it's like the darker side of the city. So it's somebody who's very comfortable among, in darker alleys and among suspicious characters. But then there's a hidden track, which comes after this. And I think it should have been reversed. I think the mood of City of the Night is a better ending than the hidden track. And maybe had they switched the two, it'd be a little more successful. But the hidden track is called The Way. It's like a slow, somber ballad. But I think maybe The Way should have just been included, if you're going to include it, before The Promise. Have The Promise close out proper. Do City of the Night as a hidden track. My only complaint. A fantastic release. If you are a fan of 70s Springsteen, and especially the late 70s, the Darkness, the River, even Born to Run to some extent, this is that. I mean, this is just, it fits perfectly in with what he was doing. Yes, of course, that's who he was at that time. But yes, these are archival tracks that weren't released, but this is a great album. Like, even as is, without editing, it's a great album. If you were to reduce this to like a single 45-minute album, even without repeating the Racing in the Street or the Fire or Because the Night, these other classics that have already been released, it is absolutely just a stunning piece of work. Got to get that feeling. Outside Looking In, Wrong Side of the Street, Candy's Boy, almost all of this too, Ain't Good Enough for You, It's a Shame, Talk to Me, The Little Thing, The Promise, just so many absolutely classic songs. Highly recommend you get this. There is a 6 CD box set of this, which has, I think, Darkness, I think it's a remaster. Then this, and then there's 3 DVDs. I just have The Promise. I don't have the 6 box set. If somebody does and wants to attest or testify or talk about it in the comments, let me know. But yeah, this is a really good album. And it just shows how incredibly prolific and talented and just at the top of the game Bruce Springsteen was back in the 70s. And there's a timeline where this gets released and people got to enjoy it long before we ever did. But if I were to rank this, that is what my ranking looks like for the main studio albums, that ones that were released. I'm not going to drop this in there right now, but I would probably, it's definitely after Magic. I think there's just something about Magic that feels magical, especially coming so late period. But probably right after Magic. It'd probably be at 6. It'd definitely be top 10. It's definitely, I think, better than The River, but I would probably put it above his first two. The second disc on this is just such an amazingly fun listen, and it's so frivolous is not the word, but there's just this carefree energy, even though at times he's still dropping your typically sort of like, not the most optimistic Bruce lyrics. There's a lot more optimism and upbeat energy and just joy on this album than I think than you would get in Darkness and to some degree on The River, but definitely not on Nebraska. So it would have been a nice release to have in the day. But anyways, I'm rambling at this point. Absolutely love it. Highly recommend you get it if you don't. Really, 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 really good listen. That's all I got for today. Subscribe, like, share, listen, do those things. Let me know your thoughts on this album, blah, blah, blah. Hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great end of spring. We're hitting triple digits next week here in Texas. It's going to be a long, miserable summer because it's not even summer yet. All right. Peace. Talk to you later.